Hello! Coming at you today with some different content than usual just because it's a busy time and I wanted to make sure you had something, even if it's not the usual checking in on the books that I've read this week. We've had a friend visiting from the States and it's Easter, busy times. So I do have 4 books to talk about today and those would be recommendations for you or for anyone who might be out there needing a book to kind of pull them out of a reading slump. So we'll get into those 4. I think they're a lot of fun. I think the stories just hook you in. So hopefully if you pick these up, you'll find that too. And if you're in a slump, maybe you'll get pulled out of one. We'll get started with a book called The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. And I specifically mention this author because you may already be familiar with her or have heard of her, because a couple years ago she came out with a book called The Rose Code, and that was really popular when it came out. I still think it's fairly popular. I've read her piece, The Huntress. This was a couple years ago as well, and I enjoyed that one. So she's kind of known for writing historical fiction, specifically World War II. If you're into that kind of thing and you vibe with her writing, this is good news for you because she's got a few pieces. Like, you could check out her bibliography and find enough to keep you busy for a little while. So this one though, again called The Diamond Eye, is based on a real story, a real person, a sniper from Russia. Her name's Mila and she actually lived. Obviously some pieces of this story are fictitious or have been, artistic license has been applied to it to make the story have a more of a plot that the author wanted to work with. But it is rooted in a historical person. And what we get here for Mila is, of course, some of her backstory. We get the circumstances of her life leading into World War II. And then there are chapters in World War II, like in the thick of fighting and being a soldier and just the bonding, maybe even falling in love with another soldier. That's sort of like in the thick of the war chapters. You get some of those. And then you also get these other chapters that are also during World War II, but they're a couple years into Mila's service. And it's when she has been asked to be a part of like a goodwill team going to the United States as a way to like advocate for the Russian people, to try and get more sympathy from America so that way aid can be sent and support can be sent. And so she's in America in those chapters and she is with some other Russians. Obviously it's like a little team of goodwill people. And there's a fabricated plot with that timeline, or that chapter series, I should say, where there's a secondary sniper, a made-up person, who from the jump is there, and he has a mission to try and take out the president. So as Mila is getting to know the first lady, and she meets the president and is doing this goodwill tour, advocating for Russia, this secondary sniper is also sort of following along, waiting for the right moment to take out the president. And you as the reader, of course, are feeling the tension mounting, and you're like, is Mila gonna be able to use her skills and be in the right place at the right time to save the president? So you've got these 2 different varieties of chapters, I should say, in the war, in Russia, doing some crazy stuff that's just like, this is war. And then you've got the chapters of this thriller-esque plot in America with the president when Mila is there. So I thought it did a very good job of pacing those 2, not making one overshadow the other and not making one, more boring where you're like, can we just get to those other chapters? It was very well balanced. I thought the momentum was very good, carrying me along. I think I read it in 2 days. So it was a pretty quick read for me just because I felt like those storylines, pushed me along, and Mila was a good protagonist to hang out with. I thought she was compelling and had very interesting things that she was dealing with. So I think that she could be one that other people like as well. The ratings on Goodreads show that she is liked and that this book is liked. So it may be for you if you're looking to come out of a slump with a historical fiction. And I think the writing also is well done. And so there's a lot to love here about this piece. Next up is a book called The Lioness. And in my Goodreads review, I put that people who like Taylor Jenkins Reid should pick this one up because it was very reminiscent of Malibu Rising, with the different like perspectives of plot and the tensions, like relationship tensions. It was just done better. But I'm getting ahead of myself because you don't even know what this book is about yet. So let me tell you that first. So this book is historical fiction, set on an African safari gone wrong. And you've got a cast of characters who all know each other because the primary person at the start, you've got this couple, so two people I guess, a Hollywood starlet and then the man she's just married, and on their honeymoon they've brought like their entourage, and their honeymoon is this African safari. And then things go south pretty much immediately. Like right from the jump, it's a lot of tension. It's definitely a thriller where you're like, all right, we are going, because the tourist party here on safari get taken hostage by some violent people in the community, in the country where they are. And then it's like a race through the chapters to be like, who's gonna live? Who just died? I don't know if anyone is gonna make it out of this trip alive. The worst honeymoon maybe ever. But it was written in a way that was just very smooth. I thought the wordsmithing of it was just really well done. And these characters, even though it's very fast paced and you're like going, I did feel like we got to know them enough where you do care. You're like, I really want this person to make it out. Or there were a couple characters that were like, you are pretty scummy and maybe this is heartless of me, but if any one of these characters has to die, I'd rather be you than this other character that I have been developing like an investment for and just like feel that they deserve to live. So it was kind of Agatha Christie in that way as well, if you've ever read And Then There Were None, where the thrill and the mystery and like people dying is clearly the priority here that you're paying attention to. But in the midst of that, you get these little pockets of backstory. You get these little glimpses into like, you are not just like a stock photo stuck here in this book. So that way we have someone who's witnessing these events or who this is happening to. It's like, I see that you are a more robust character and you've got this thing waiting for you at home, or this is your concern. So it really does feel very human, even though the thriller aspect of it is what you're really like, wow, this is so good. This is what I'm paying attention to. And I'm not usually one who likes thrillers, likes anything scary, just because it all ends up in my dreams. So I have some pretty terrifying dreams if I read anything too much. But this was good. I read this one in a day, passed it along to my grandmother, who she also really enjoyed it. This one easily could be just something light that you can speed through, even though it's dealing with this horrific safari experience. It really reads at a snappy pace. So it's a good one to get into if you're just like, man, I need something. Need it to catch my attention, need it to hook me immediately, because literally the first chapter, you are off to the races. So this one might be for you if that's what you need. Next, we've got Giovanni's Room, which is a book that I think is just like so well written. It's amazing. It's just really, really well done. It is a great example of good wordsmithing, pacing of how you're letting readers learn about information and experience the plot, and then the plot itself is, at times you're like, what is going on? But I'm hooked and I'm willing to travel with these characters to see what is going on, and Baldwin does such a good job of like drawing out all of the emotions of the reader and holistically, it is just a very well done book. So, what is going on in this book that is so well done? Well, it's kind of a mix-up of things. Like, there's definitely some romance to it. There's a love story aspect, but there's also like a mysterious aspect to it where you're like, there's an underlying current of tension because David, who's the narrator, is like retelling these events. Like, he's looking back on what has just happened in his life. He's clearly unsettled, clearly trying to process and deal. He's just been living in Paris, whereas all these events happen. This traumatic stuff happens, and in Paris he has met someone named Giovanni, hence the title. And that's where the love story comes in, but also that mystery, because as you get to know Giovanni, and I thought Giovanni was interesting, and I thought like he was likable, like he was an interesting character. But you find out that maybe he's sort of mixed up in something that's not so good, which I don't even know if it's fair to say that, because maybe that sounds kind of misleading. But at a certain point, you know, like, Giovanni has committed a terrible, terrible crime. And when I read this the first time and I realized that and got to that point in the story, it was like, I can't imagine what he would have done, because he didn't seem like, that didn't seem in his nature, that didn't seem to match with his character, that he'd committed a crime, and like a serious crime. But then, of course, you go on and learn, and you're like, what? Wow, I didn't know it was that kind of story. So I thought that it was just very, very well done for keeping the reader in suspense, and knowing these characters, knowing David and Giovanni. Even though I will say, I don't know that I really liked David all that much, but I liked hearing about Giovanni through his eyes. I thought that he was okay as a narrator, because someone's got to tell the story, and it makes sense that he's the one telling it. But yeah, I recommend this for all the reasons I said at the beginning of this little clip. You know, it has all of the elements that just work. You've got interesting characters, complex and compelling characters, and the story just kind of moves you. Like, it's a short little book, so it's not going to take super long, and the way that Baldwin has structured the plot and the way he writes, the story has momentum, and you want to keep reading and being like, but what happened with Giovanni? So, a little bit of mystery there, suspense, but it'll push you along. It'll get you out of that slump, and it'll give you some really good writing along the way. I'm ending with a middle grade piece that I had a lot of fun with, and if you also have a lot of fun with, then you'll be delighted to know that it is the first of a series, and that's always the best when you find a new series that you like. So, as I mentioned, middle grade, supernatural, fantasy, contemporary times, all wrapped up into like a version of America as we know it. And we've got Amari, who is our main character. She's 13 years old in the start of this story, and she knows nothing about supernatural beings and things happening in the world. And that is because all of the supernatural stuff is like contained and relegated by the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. But then she gets, by way of her brother, who has been like missing for a little bit, she gets an invite to try out to be part of the summer program that the Bureau hosts every summer. And of course, that means then she's like headfirst diving into learning about all of the supernatural things, which is great because then that's you as a reader learning with Amari. And there's a bunch of different abilities that people have with magic, a lot of different things that people can do, which is great. But then you learn this pretty quickly, that magicians, that kind of magic, is not so very welcomed in the grand scheme of the Bureau and their business. And then I'll give you one guess about what kind of magic and what kind of magical person Amari is. And so then it turns into, not only are you learning about the supernatural stuff and being with Amari as she experiences it all, but then she's also like learning about what it means to be a magician, and there's some conflict and bigger threats out there. I mean, the title of the book is Amari and the Night Brothers, so the Night Brothers are some magicians who are posing a threat, and there's another student in the summer program that the Bureau puts on, who you're like, are you a magician too? And you see Amari kind of get a buddy, a magician buddy, though everything may not be as it appears in that friendship for one reason or another. And then you get, of course, some lovable staff and teachers there running the program and facilitating things that you get to meet and just enjoy. So it's both like, in some ways, I don't want to say Harry Potter-esque, but like, because there are peers, Amari's peers, who you're like, yeah, these kids are fun, or like, you seem kind of Draco Malfoy-esque. Or like there's some teachers where you're like, I like you, just like I like McGonagall, just like I liked Hagrid, you know, so you've got those adult figures as well to balance out like who gets to be your allies in the Bureau, who are actually going to be helpful to Amari as she's learning, and then there are those adventures or misadventures because of the Night Brothers, that she gets some support from some clever friends and then some supportive adults. And of course, over it all too, you're wondering about like, is she going to discover what happened to her brother then? Because he's the one who left that invite for her. When she gets to the Bureau, she learns stuff about her brother that she's like, oh, not everything was as it seemed with him either. So you've got that mystery kind of woven into the story as well. And it was fun. Like I said before, it was just so good because it was refreshing, and like it was new. It was a magic sort of world that I haven't encountered before in a story, and Amari was just super, super lovable. So it was good to follow along with her story, and I definitely recommend this one. So those are my recommendations for if you need something to pull yourself out of a reading slump. And if you have anything that you want to recommend to me, please do send those along. I'd be more than happy to get them. I've got some things that I've added to my library list based on recommendations I've gotten in the past. So I do genuinely care about what you think I should be reading, and I add them to my list every time I get them. So please send some recommendations. I'm always looking for more. And then next week I'll be getting back to the regular reviews of whatever I get into. So you'll hear more from me then. And in the meantime, I hope you have some good reads this week.